Heyo, Patrick.
How are you getting on? So, what have you for me today? I have this feeling. We're going to this one blind, by the way.
Yeah, so we're going in completely blind. Normally, you do a bunch of research. Okay. So we have Peter Zeihan on Sam Harris's podcast, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. Going in blind. Let's do it.
Last time you were on the podcast, you told me that there was no way that Trump was going to win the 2024 election. So I have to ask you what the fuck happened right at the top.
Yeah,
here.
Fair enough. Yeah. Sorry, I slept that day. My general feeling was that it was going to be America's independents that decided how things were going to go. Not people who said they were independent, but really were Republicans and everything but name, but the actual 10% of the electorate that splits their vote, because they had decided the last 7 elections. So it felt pretty safe to me. And in the post-election polls, it looks like that group decisively voted against Trump. Everyone else shifted, however, with one exception, Washington State. Every state and every demographic shifted substantially towards Donald Trump and allowed him to win with the margin that he got.
Well, how would you rate his second term so far? We're going to talk about tariffs and foreign policy and supply chain and specifics like China, but
yeah, there have been massive tariff changes since he got into office. A lot.
He brings in a tariff, then he changes the following day or a few days later, or he brings it back, and it's up and down.
Well, he's using it he's using it like a cudgel is what it looks like. He says something to a foreign power, and then that foreign power doesn't want to play ball, and he's like, well, then here's what's going to happen. And then he just changes it as he sees fit, right?
Yeah, but the problem is it's really affecting markets, especially in the United States, especially affecting the stock market. You can see the stock market ever since he came in, it goes up and down like a yo-yo. Tariffs always affect the country that imposes the tariffs, not the country receiving. I think that's the first thing people should understand about how tariffs work.
Right, but isn't Trump saying
they hurt the United States more than it'll hurt the country that's getting the tariff?
Right, but isn't
tariffs are paid when? Sorry.
Trump's thing is that we have been sucking up a tariff from X country, and we're just equalizing the tariff.
Yes, right? And on paper that looks perfectly reasonable. But in the reality of the real economic world, it'll drive the cost of goods in the United States up, because businesses are not going to pay out the tariffs when the goods are coming in. They're going to pass on that cost, obviously, to the consumer at the end of the day.
Correct.
Tariffs were used before by the United States during the 1920s because of the Great Depression and so on. They safeguarded American jobs. And it did the opposite. It really drove the price of inflation up in the United States. Right. The only thing that really economically that dragged the United States out was a good war. It was a war, pretty much.
Well, I don't think it drove up the price of inflation. It drove up inflation, but it also was that the people ended up paying the difference from the tariff at the consumer purchasing end, as opposed to
that's what I was trying to. The point I was trying to get to is
right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, this is going to hurt America more than it'll hurt the country that you're trying to tariff, because goods in the modern world can just go somewhere else.
Right. Somebody else wants that product somewhere.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
It's the same thing what happened when he tried to put a tariff on Canada, for instance. It looked great in headlines. He was going to put a big 30% tariff and all this on Canada, until he realized the car manufacturers went to him and saying, wait a minute, most of our parts that make our cars in America are finished and made in Canada, and they go over and back. So you're going to drive the price of cars up here if you do this.
Let's get back to it.
What most concerns you? What have there been any pleasant surprises? How would you rate the last 10, 11 months?
I'm usually try not to be critical of presidents in their first terms, because they're learning. It takes time for the policies to kick in. The world doesn't move on a dime. Second term is different because they should have learned from what happened in their first term, and by that measure, it has not gone well. Most of the stated aims of the Trump administration, things like reshoring manufacturing, increasing its defense position, have actually taken the country in a significantly different direction. And I have not seen an unraveling of national power on this scale since the Soviet breakdown.
It's a pretty incredible statement. What he's saying is that the power of the United States is actually reducing with his policies.
Yes.
From Mr. Zeihan's perspective. And
yes, I understand what he's getting to there. He probably will address in a moment. The problem is, America tried this in as I said, in the 1930s. They isolated themselves, they pulled themselves back from the world stage as such. And when that happened, it reduced America's power across the globe at the time. But that's why you had the rise of the Soviet Union at the time, and likes of Nazi Germany and Mussolini, and you had other powers rise up and took space of that vacuum. And the same thing is happening now, because Trump is in America first, and that's it. Screw everybody else, which is great for his base, but not great for the future security of the United States.
So an isolationist stance isn't going to help us exert our will. Okay, that makes sense.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Here we go.
So far, very impressed with how much damage is being done. This is some combination of Zimbabwe, Argentine economic policy, maybe with just a dash of French statism thrown in.
All right, so let's talk about the unraveling. What are you seeing? Because over right of center in Trumpistan, I can imagine many people believe that the tariffs are working. We're onshoring American manufacturing. We're building up our manufacturing base. Jobs are going to be returning as a result of all this. We have China right where we want her. It's really just a picture of American strength. I mean, Trump is the kind of guy you just can't screw around with. Finally, we have a president like that. How are you not seeing this?
Let's start with the tariffs.
Yeah.
When you do a flat tariff and you tax things at the border, no matter what they are, you need to break down manufacturing into two broad categories. First, you have your simple products, things like plastics or furniture, textiles, where there's only a half a dozen manufacturing supply chain steps. And in a high tariff environment, it's relatively easy to relocate some of those steps within the tariff wall. So we are seeing significant build out in the United States for things like furniture and glue and paints and all of that kind of stuff. More complex manufacturers, the hundreds or thousands of steps, are very different. So here's automotive, aerospace, electronics, computing.
Right. Those things are very difficult to manage because they come from so many sourced places. Where if you try and put the tariff, who pays the tariff for the finished product? Is it those who, right? Is it the last person that finally put it together to ship it? Or is everybody back on the chain from its origin going to be tariffed at each stage as they move across a border in a place to get it to where it's got to be actually manufactured and put together?
And that's what happened when the phone companies got on to Trump about all these. Do you remember the big list of, remember when he came out with the big massive list? You know, he was tariffing every country, even some countries that are not really countries. But he had a big list and a tariffing everyone. The problem was the phone manufacturers got onto him saying, wait a minute, there's hundreds of parts in our phone coming from dozens of different countries, all being put together and then sent to you. So who are you going to tariff? What's going on? Are we going to have to break it up? Are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? Or then he backpedaled on them, and
right. So
the whole thing was a mess. The whole thing was a mess.
The super nuanced thing. You can't just say X builds X and ships it to us, and we tariff that. It can't work like that because there's so many components in a thing.
Exactly. Right? If you look at car manufacturing, let's take that for your normal car on the road. That has parts from dozens of different countries in it. Okay, it might be assembled in the United States, but all the rest of the parts mainly come from the outside the United States, like the Canada, Mexico, Japan, and so on.
Right.
Taiwan,
Brazil,
especially.
Taiwan, Congo.
Everywhere. Yeah. And when they tried to explain this to Trump, he kind of flip-flopped a bit because he realized, oh, wait a minute.
We didn't have a choice. He was going to triple the cost of all the products because he tariffed it at every gate, right?
No, the same thing happened when he tried playing the game with the EU. He said, oh, there's going to be a flat tariff in the EU. You'll have to pay us loads of money. And there was big headlines. That's quietly kind of died off in a lot of ways in the last couple of weeks behind the scenes.
The reality of the situation has been you can't do the thing you're trying to do.
No, what happened was the EU just went on to India and China and started doing trade deals with them.
Right.
I said, okay, if you're going to do this to us, we'll just next year onwards, we'll just trade with these guys. We don't have to sell to you.
Right.
We're a bigger trading bloc than the United States.
And there was another issue that came up with that where Saudi Arabia is apparently accepting yuan for fuel.
And there's actually serious talk. Yeah, it's even serious talk to them in the future, probably there's going to be other currencies accepted other than the dollar.
Right, and that's going to cause havoc. So Trump's going to have to figure that one out for sure. So, all right.
It's actually, the sad thing is, it was Trump who actually caused all this to begin with, by tariffing everyone and not realizing the world is not the same that it was in the 30 years ago, even. Let's take that for example.
It's just not, you know. All right, here we go.
No.
When there are thousands of steps and you only produce, say, half of the steps in country, you have to pay the tariff every time an intermediate product crosses the border. And the end product ends up costing significantly more. So simple math, it's easier to take the steps that are within your tariff zone, move them outside of your tariff zone, and then you only have to pay the tariff once. So what we're seeing right now is a steady deindustrialization of the value-added, high-skilled, labor-intensive jobs, and instead replacing them with much lower value-added jobs and things like plastics, or maybe things that are automated because our labor force is too much. So we've seen contraction in the manufacturing sector for the last 6 months. And the number that I pay attention to the most right now is called industrial construction spending. It's a data point put out by the Federal Reserve, and it's been negative since tariff day. So people are finishing the industrial projects they had started before April, but no one's really launching much that's new.
No.
Right. So yeah, they push everything outside the boundaries where the tariffs are. So they're only forced to pay that tariff one time. Everything is then produced outside, and then a completed product with all of its components then get one tariff.
Yes, but the problem is, as he was just pointing out there is no new factories being built since tariff day. The ones that were already started, as he was saying there, are finished. Yes. They finished building them, they're opening them, they're doing they're trying to make a go of it.
Right.
But since tariff day, it's dropped off the cliff. Because I remember Trump was announcing all these big, massive factories. I'm thinking of the chip manufacturing. Remember, he made a big speech. He went up saying, "Oh, look, they're going to spend something billion, blah, 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 all this." It was only afterwards when Bloomberg and them started looking into it. It was a promise they would build them. It wasn't actually they physically bought us. They bought the site, but they were promising in the future they'll build there just to get out of their particular tariff hole. There's a lot of smoke BS being sold to him, but it's really damaging. Probably long term. Probably you won't feel it now. Definitely 5 to 10 years down the road, between other countries get richer off the back of this, that you realize that the damage is worse than it was before tariffs.
Here we go.
So what are you expecting to see in the economy over the next 12 months as a result? I mean, is this synonymous with inflation, what you just described? Or?
Well, if you go back to before April, we knew we were preparing for the fall of the Chinese system. We were preparing for the end of globalization. We knew we needed to expand our industrial plant. Probably needed to double it, and probably needed to increase the power plant by 50% to go with that. There's no way you do that on anything less than a 40-year time frame without a lot.
Right. So having to change our grids, the United States has 3 grids. We have Eastern, Western, and Texas, and we don't produce enough power to double our industrial base because we're not investing appropriately in nuclear power, which is the only thing that's going to get us over the top and meet the power requirements we have. But there's so many regulations based on perceived fallacies in that system, and it would break down. We just think it would break down.
But the problem is that the money won't be there to invest in this power grid. If there's not people willing to build the factories and create the jobs and create the money coming into the economy, where are they going to get the money to build these new power plants? The problem is America is very much is falling into the same trap it did in the 1930s. It fallen into the same, voting a guy who promised the sun, moon, and stars. And a lot of his policies have worked. Like of immigration and so on, have worked very well. But when it comes to trade and international policies, it hasn't worked well.
Well, it's because the world is different. It's not a simple solution either.
No, the world works differently now.
For sure,
the EU doesn't say, for example, has to ship all its cars to America. It can start shipping them to China. It can start shipping them to India, Pakistan. There's other economies out there. You have to remember, also, the EU has a far better reputation in a lot of these places than, say, the United States.
All right, here we go.
Of inflation, and I would argue we needed to do it in the next 5 to 6 years. So inflation was already part of my forecast. But now we have deindustrialization going on top of that. And so if we can't turn this around and get back to building things again. And that requires a very different federal policy.
Yes.
We're going to enter a period where we're going to lose the products from abroad. At the same time, we no longer are producing very many of them here. So we have to still go through that industrial build out, but now against a backdrop of goods shortages. So the debate now is, do you want high inflation plus productivity, or high inflation plus a goods shortage? Neither of these are pretty.
So obviously there's been a huge build out with respect to data centers for AI.
And progressing.
I mean, that's the one thing that is has been a bright spot for the market. It remains to be seen whether it's a catastrophic bubble in the end, but
it's definitely a bubble. Let's be clear. Whether it's catastrophic, who knows?
I mean, and it can be a bubble. I mean, we should be clear. It can be a bubble without AI itself being a bubble, right? I mean, there could be this overinvestment in a build out, even if AI is in fact the future, right?
Well, there's a lot of unknowns in that statement, so I don't want to overly come down on one side or the other. 15 years ago, 10 years ago, people were aware of large language models, but I don't think there was anyone in the AI space who really thought that LLMs were the thing that was going to break open, and here it is. So expecting the model we're on right now to be what we use in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years is a bit of a stretch from my...
Yeah, AI is going to change a lot of things, and the big, huge build out on it is the manipulation of those language models is going to either produce some amazing things, some horrible things, probably a mixture of both.
I'm a great believer. If you can build something at home, we don't invest in it. Right. Very simple investment policy. Large language model sets. I can download data sets for large language models and build out on my computer right now my own personal AI. Now, the companies like, say, ChatGPT and so on, OpenAI and all the rest of them, they have great packaging around something you can build at home. And it is a bubble. Eventually, AI will be everywhere. But will there be as big a market as it is right now? Don't know. It's probably it won't pop all overnight. It'll slowly kind of deflate, I think.
Well,
won't pop like what he's...
I've seen
I think it'll deflate over time.
When I go to a browser, I will get bad information from AI. Something I know is not true. Like, that's not a true statement, right? But after a while, if everybody's depending upon it, then it can be manipulated in such a way that people just believe that the bad or wrong thing is true.
Look at Grok, for instance. How many times has Grok been... I would say the Grok AI has been found to whatever Musk has at the back of his mind, Grok will agree with, even if the information is wrong. And multiple times that has been found. As a joke, it's kind of a joke running around the AI circles.
All right, but I've seen when we use language models, when we're developing products and we're doing things together, most times I find that ChatGPT is vague, or it leans one direction really hard, where Grok seems a little bit more center of the road, unless it's something that falls into that category, right?
It falls into that category. But the problem is ChatGPT is very much a straight line model. You ask it a question, it gives you an answer. That's the way it was always designed. It was never... AIs are not designed to think outside the box. They'll feed into whatever narrative you pump in. That's how AI, large language models work. It's very...
Well, right, but we've had the AI models lie to us, and we're like, why'd you lie? And it's like, well, that's the answer you wanted. I'm like, I don't want the answer that you think I want. Right. What I want is for you to answer the question in a way that's constructive, and I can work with it. Not I have to pull out the truths, the untruths, and what do you think my bias is.
People should not use the word AI. That's the first thing that should come out of people's head. This is not intelligent.
No, it's language modeling.
This is a computer program with large model, basically a large library behind it with pretty algorithms. That's all it is. It is as smart as a 2-year-old child at most.
Right, especially if it knows you have a bias, it's going to want to feed the bias. Right, because
the
algorithm is designed to keep you using the product. Yes, and the more it gives you the answers that you want, the more you're going to want. So it creates your own echo chamber. So now, since people don't echo chamber very well, we have these large language models that are echo chambering for the people, which is unsafe. It is unsafe. So,
as I say, it's one of those markets that will fizzle out. It won't die off. It'll be always, AI will be there in some way as a feature in all the products we're using right now, like it already is. But the investment in it will peter out.
Right. I wrote that down. I'm going to hold you to that, Patrick. Here we go.
The point of view, technology doesn't go in a straight line like that. Also, LLMs require a massive amount of processing compute capacity with graphics processing units. And GPUs are the most advanced chips that humans make, and GPUs cannot be made without a fully globalized system. So I actually look at today's build out like, this is great because every data center needs power to go with it. We need the power regardless. And if we're entering a world where globalization breaks down, we won't be able to make the GPUs. So anything that's installed now is all we have. So while I'm not a believer in the trajectory that we're on, I have no problem with any of the steps we're taking right now.
Do you think?
Right. All those steps can lead to mobilization of assets for different purposes if it turns out those purposes are more advantageous.
Yes. And the problem is when you're dealing with a country that is being led by a guy who doesn't really understand how the world economy works, it's very damaging to the United States. I know a lot of people in the audience would probably won't like me saying this, but as I've always said, some of Trump's policies were good, but when it comes to international trade and relations, he's proven time and time again that he doesn't understand the basic concepts of how world trade works. And that's going to be his biggest downfall. I think it's going to be his biggest legacy, actually.
Well, I can just hope that the ship gets righted. We see that things are going on and we start rebuilding and redeveloping. But
the problem is you can't develop a country if you don't have the basic building blocks to develop a country. Like as he was saying there, if you don't have the goods coming in from outside, say like the German steel, for instance, you need so much steel coming into your country more than what you can manufacture internally to build out even houses or whatever. You can't stand on your own anymore as a country. Those days are gone. The days of the Roman Empire are gone. Those days are no longer exist. Every country and every trading bloc relies on each other. Right. The modern world works.
As you said, the breakdown of globalization is going to cause more issues. So.
No, don't get me wrong. As I said, I do agree with Trump's immigration policies. They're working very well. It's just his trading policies are not going to work. You cannot tax or tariff your way out of an economic downturn.
So and that's where it feels like it's a revenge bit as opposed to assisting in appropriate globalization for the movement of goods, right?
Yeah. Oh no, it's completely. Anyone who upsets him gets slapped with a tariff. Looks great. It plays into the narrative. I'm a big, strong man. But these countries are going to turn around and say, all right, we'll just sell our goods somewhere else. So,
and they will.
That's what Germany said to him. And he said, we're going to slap you with steel tariffs on your steel. And they said, okay, we'll just send it over here.
Thanks for letting us know there's a problem. Appreciate you.
Yeah, and we'll just turn the ship and we'll go to India, for instance. Or we'll go to China, or we'll go to any other trading bloc.
Someone who will give us the money and not tariff us, and we can actually show a good profit margin on it. All right, here we go.
Pretty much. Business will always find a way to make a profit.
Well,
why would they sell at a 15-20% loss to the United States when they can make a 15% profit somewhere else?
All right, here we go.
We're in the process, however gradual, of onshoring our dependence on Taiwan, or is that not in the cards?
No. There's 100,000 manufacturing steps for high-end semiconductors. The fab facility is an important one. It's an unavoidable one. But there's another 40,000 that are like that. And once you actually have your fab facility, the next step down is testing and packaging and incorporating into components. We do very little here. I'd argue that's much more important. And on the front end is the design and the logistics. We do that. That's the highest value added part of the process. So this obsession with fabs is actually taking one of the lower value added steps that's most capital intensive and putting it at the center of the conversation. And that's just bad reasoning from my point of view. We should be focusing on things that are downstream, closer to the end consumer, if you're worried about national security.
Well, so I want to talk about national security and foreign policy and talk about China and Central America, South America. But just to close the loop on this, what do you think, if this process of what you're calling deindustrialization continues apace for the rest of Trump's term, what are you expecting to change over the course of 4 years?
I mean, there's so little with this administration that goes in a straight line. So that's a really loaded question. Key thing to remember is that Donald Trump still hasn't fleshed out the government. He fired the top several thousand positions, filled very, very few of them, and then surrounded himself with a cabinet that has very little technical experience in anything. So if you think back to Obama, we had a cabinet that was all academics that had never done anything in the real world. Now we have ideologues who have never done anything in the real world. So to expect to get good advice going to the president, even if he was open to hearing it, is pretty...
That might be a bit of a mischaracterization. I think all those Purple Book people that were let go was one ideologue set for a different ideologue set. But I think there are functional people in that cabinet, just like there were functional people in the previous cabinet, but the previous cabinet had a lot of people that were outside the Overton window.
No, I'll be honest with you. I understand what he's on about the time of Obama going into Trump and so on. Now we're in Trump again. If you look at Trump's cabinet, they're on paper pretty smart people.
Right.
Now, are they technically good at their jobs? Do they know the technical? No, a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are yes people. He's right. Like if you take the Department of Homeland Security, I watched an interview with that lady up in front of the Senate committee one time. She was asked certain questions about the law.
Right, Secretary
the Military Act, and so on. And before the senator could stop her, she opened her mouth and said, well, Trump hasn't signed in this policy yet. And she kept going on and until a Republican senator stepped in and saved her, saying, that's actually part of the Constitution, not a policy. That's what he's on about. He's on about people who are technically on paper smart. But are they smart enough to do the job they're in? Some of them yes, and some of them no. And that's the problem. We had the same problem when Obama was there. He put in a lot of people on paper who were technically smart, but did a really bad job.
Yes.
I had the same problem. I think the problem is when you put a cabinet in there surrounded by your family and friends, it falls very flat really quick.
Right.
That's the problem with Trump.
Yeah, that doesn't give you
that's
the
the
best
problem with
chance
Trump's second. Yeah, and that's the problem with Trump's second term. He's put in a lot of people who some of them are really good. Don't get me wrong. Some of them are really good at their job.
Put people in there he can trust, because in his first term, he ended up with a lot of people he couldn't trust that did lead him wrong.
He ended up with a lot of people he turned against him, not people he couldn't trust. A lot of people who probably disagreed with him once. I'm thinking of what's his name. I think his name, but the problem is Trump is such a fiery guy. Everyone's scared to say no to him, and you need people around you. Good leaders have people around them that say, wait a minute, you're wrong.
Right.
That's a sign of a good leader.
Right. I have to stand up to this one because it doesn't work or function. So
Trump at this particular time has no one inside in that cabinet will turn around and say, wait a minute, Mr. President, you're completely wrong this time. Because they know for a fact they'll get fired.
All right, let's complete this loop and then we'll call it.
Thin. And we've now had major policy changes on drug policy, on illegal narcotics, on the Red Sea, on Israel, on Ukraine, on vaccines, on tariffs, because, and I quote, it's what I feel.
Well, that goes back to the thing you said. He's a fiery guy. He's going to make some of these rash decisions. I think if he slowed down a little bit and gave it a couple days, I think things would be a little bit better.
Right? I think that's what is happening. Is he fires out a decision, then 24 hours later, the decision changes. In the following day after that, he does another decision. He just stumbles along. Why? As you say, he's a fiery guy. That's who he is. And that is wonderful. That probably worked in the late 19th century for world leaders. But now in the modern time is the markets do not like that.
Oh, no. That's because
global marketplace does not like this. They don't know what to expect from day to day.
Right.
So now what's happening is you see a lot of bigger companies, even other countries saying, you know what? Sometimes dealing with this particular country is more hassle than it's worth. So we're going to slowly kind of move some of our markets somewhere else. Not straight away, but just over time, as you're seeing with other trade deals being announced around the place.
Well, and I've seen a lot of those. Peter Zeihan was talking about your basic simple type goods that only have 5 or 6 steps in the process.
Yeah.
Like we're doing great with those. We're doing really good with those.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Right.
Every country in the world can manufacture them.
Right. And we can do that here. Yeah. But the problem is we still have the thing where it's expensive to pay American workers to do the job. Right.
Yes.
So then we end up with a tariff that's a functional tariff where someone else can still sell things for a profit here, just not as much as other places. So it's going to switch from I can make more money, even though I am making money in the United States on the products, and I'm just going to shift them somewhere else. Again, profit margin driven, right?
Yeah, but there's only one problem with all of this, is at the end of the day, every country in the world can make simple goods.
Right.
Your economy survives on complex goods. That's how your economy moves forward. As you were saying there with aerospace, GPUs, all the other technology that all Americans take.
Right. And building out the infrastructure.
Granted right now.
Right. Building out the infrastructure and the power structure and making sure that you can get into that space. Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is you need those goods coming in from the outside because you do not have the manufacturing capacity to make them in the United States. You need the world to supply you with these goods. But if the world is turning around and saying the cost of doing business is I'm going to lose 15, 20% off the top of my margin, they're just going to go somewhere else. Yeah, even when you saw the job report came out of the United States, came out there recently, I know she got fired the minute she brought out the bad report, but it showed that the job creation was going down. And then Trump put in his own person. Now magically the job creation is going up. But in reality, if you, as he was saying there, if you look at all the key data points, is all the other key indicators of your economy are slowly but surely going down or just flatlining until they realize, do we spend the money now or do we wait and see? And a lot of bigger companies are just saying, you know what, we'll just hedge our bets.
Yep.
We'll wait and see how this pans out.
They're doing that. All right.
Yep.
Here we go.
No straight lines on that. And so you can imagine what's going on in the business community right now. This is the reason why industrial construction spending is falling. No one knows what the policy set is going to be tomorrow or next month or next year. And without some degree of continuity or some degree of guide, everything is up in the air and everything is on hold.
Right. And he's right. So there's insecurities in the market. Yeah. And they're driving those kinds of things. So it's something we're going to have to look at, and we'll keep a monitor on it. We'll keep a track on it. So you got anything else to add there, Patrick?
As I say, I wish we had better news for your economy, but I think the next 12 months definitely will tell an awful lot.
Well, I think if Trump can right the ship and figure out what's going on with these things, and he gets cabinet members that are like, hey, here's the trend.
I don't think he's going to. The problem is, I'm going to take the Secretary of Labor that came up and gave him a bad report. She got fired. She was saying, wait a minute, the job figures are down. He fired her. Anyone who gives him bad news gets fired. So no one's going to give him bad news.
The emperor's new clothes. We have the emperor's
new clothes. And the problem is, unless Trump's immigration policy is working slowly but surely, he's getting there with the immigration policy. But if it comes to the likes of, say, your national security, where you will need closer relationships more than distant relationships, or if you come with your trading partners, I think that's going to do a lot more damage in the next 12 months, I would say.
But I think immigration that damage is going to become the indicators that something needs to change and we need to work in a different direction. I think once that realization hits, hopefully somebody can say, hey, here's the numbers, here's the real deal. Let's work on this to improve this again.
But every single person who's pointed that out to him has got fired. Just bear that in mind. Like when he's been told time and time again, you cannot put this tariff on Taiwan. Eventually he pulled it back. Because Taiwan is the #1 manufacturer of microchips in the world.
Yes.
It literally took his own Joint Chiefs to say, this is a national security issue. You cannot do this. This would just destroy us. This is where all our chips are coming from. Yeah. And then he pulled that back. After that, at that stage, he would arguably say that a lot of damage was already done to the market. That's the problem. Unless somebody is willing to say to him, your immigration is working, that's brilliant, pat in the back. But your trade policy is going to shoot yourself in the foot a lot faster than anything else.
All right. For Patrick McCallum, I am Alex Johansson. We are the A&P Gents. Thank you so much for tuning in. Help us beat the algorithm. Like, subscribe, and all the things. We are out.